And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you. Martin Ford back with us, founder of a Silicon Valley-based software development firm. He has more than 25 years' experience in the fields of computer design and software development, holds a computer engineering degree from the University of Michigan, graduate business degree from the University of California. He is a frequent keynote speaker on the subject of accelerating progress in robotics and artificial intelligence, and what these advances mean for the economy, job market, and society of the future. Martin, welcome back. How are you, sir?
I'm good. Thanks for having me back.
I'm looking forward to this. Is artificial intelligence a good or bad thing? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a good thing, but I also think it has two sides to it. You know, it's going to be indispensable to us to solve all the problems we face in the future. You know, we've got things going on like climate change. We're going to need a lot of innovation to mitigate that, to have clean energy and things like that, but also to adapt to it. We're really going to need all kinds of inventions, all kinds of innovations, and artificial intelligence will help us do that, because what it will do is it will make us smarter. You know, it will make even the smartest people more capable. It will amplify their intelligence, their creativity, and we're already seeing that in many areas. You know, AI is being used to discover new drugs, new medicines, for example. So I think it's a tremendously positive thing, but there are a whole bunch of issues that come with it, some dangers, some real concerns that we're going to have to work through and, you know, figure out the answers to make sure that it remains a positive force for us.
Would that include job security for people?
Absolutely. That's one of the main things, is that a lot of jobs are basically going to be automated. You know, if you're coming to work and you're doing something that's predictable and routine, if you tend to do the same kind of thing again and again, then eventually machines, algorithms are going to get good at doing that. And the thing is, it doesn't matter if you're working in McDonald's, you know, doing something, you know, manual, or if you're working in an office sitting in front of a computer doing something routine just with information. Actually, that second job might in many cases be easier to automate, because you don't need, you know, an expensive robot or anything like that. It's just software. So a lot of what people consider to be good jobs, white-collar jobs, sitting in front of a laptop, cranking out the same report again and again, that kind of thing, jobs that require, in many cases, a college degree, those jobs are also going to be potentially threatened by this.
Some fast food outlets already, Martin, are coming up with innovation with robotic food handling machines and things like that.
That's right, yeah. White Castle was the most famous one recently that brought in robots to flip the hamburgers, and then they've also got a machine that automates the French fries too. So, you know, we're going to see more and more restaurants and fast food places move in that direction. One of the things that's accelerating it is the pandemic, right? That, you know, it's really changed the way we think about things, right? Now it's not so great if a lot of people are in close proximity in the kitchen, or if a lot of people are in contact with your food, right? People have, you know, preferences have really kind of changed as a result of this pandemic. And I think as a result of that, people are going to be a lot more open to dealing with robots or automation rather than people.
Martin, what do you think of self-driving vehicles?
I think eventually it will work, and it will be a very important technology. But I do think it's going to take longer than, a lot of people have projected. This has been going on for a long time, right? The first self-driving cars came along in 2009, 2010. And back then they were saying it was going to be 5 years. And, of course, it's now more than 10 years, and we're still not really there yet. I think it's probably at least another 5 years, maybe even more than that, before you really have true self-driving cars. You'll see in Arizona, in Phoenix, where, you know, the roads are very wide and the weather is, you know, it never snows.
Right.
There are not a lot of pedestrians because it's very hot. It's a good, easy environment for self-driving cars, and they do have some experiments going on there. Waymo, Google's original self-driving car project, has an actual program going there where you can get in a car with no driver and go a short distance, but it's a very constrained map. You know, you can go to certain places within a very specific region. But the idea that we're going to really have a robotic Uber or Lyft, in San Francisco or Manhattan is still a long way off. I mean, the problems that need to be solved there are just, very, very challenging.
I mean, Tesla came up with a vehicle, but there have been some fatalities involved, haven't there?
That's right. There have been several people
run over.
That died or drivers have been killed. The very first one to be killed was using the autonomous system to drive, and from what I heard was watching a movie. I think it was actually a Harry Potter movie, and not paying attention at all and drove into the side of a truck, right? So there have been a lot of these instances.
Thinking the vehicle was going to take care of everything, right?
Right. But the cameras on the vehicle couldn't, maybe because of the way the sun was shining on the truck or something, it didn't recognize it, so it just drove right into the side of it. So there are these incidents, and Tesla has really pushed the envelope on this, because what they basically do is, first of all, they're pre-selling their self-driving capability. Elon Musk is out there telling people that their cars are going to completely drive themselves if only they pay, I think it's something like $10,000 extra for this software package, right? And so people are paying this money, but of course it doesn't work. I mean, it does some things, but it's not even remotely close to being a truly autonomous self-driving solution. But then what they do is they keep allowing people to download updates, right? And then the whole capability of the car changes each time they have an update. And people, I think, can be very easily lured into imagining that this car is more capable than it really is, right? And then they'll rely on it when they really shouldn't. So I think that's quite dangerous and really, to some extent, irresponsible for Tesla to do that. And there's a real danger that there will be, really serious accidents or something in the future, and that could kind of derail the whole industry, that people will, or the regulators will step in and really put the brakes on this, and that will slow down progress. So
we've got lots of nighttime truck drivers, Martin, that listen to this program, and we are, supporters of our truck drivers. They keep America going, and we keep hearing stories of driverless trucks. I think that's crazy.
Yeah, I mean, I think eventually we'll see that. I still think it's a ways off. I mean, for one thing, you think about how much a truck weighs and how much energy it has, traveling down the highway at 60 miles an hour or something. I don't think a lot of people are going to easily accept the idea of a massive truck like that,
plus I've
going
seen
down the highway at that kind of speed with absolutely no one on board, and
a lot of these drivers also unload the cargo.
Exactly right. That's right. And so I do think, there'll be an initial phase where maybe the truck can pretty much drive itself, but the driver still has to be there. And that might make drivers, maybe that's easier for drivers, but it might be also kind of boring. Drivers will become a little bit more like what you see with airline pilots, right, which is that they really don't spend a lot of time actually flying the plane. Most of it is the autopilot system, which can take off and land and pretty much do everything, but you still got to have two pilots there. And one thing that's happened as a result,
I tell you what I won't jump into is a pilotless plane.
Right. I think most people wouldn't. But the thing is that in many ways, having an autonomous plane which just flies through the air and doesn't deal with traffic is actually an easier problem than a self-driving car. I mean, if you think about it.
Until something goes wrong, then what happens?
Right, a car driving in traffic. I mean, you've got a whole many more scenarios that you got to deal with constantly, right? But you're right. I think most people would be scared to get on the plane with no pilots, and I think a lot of people will be scared to share the road with massive trucks that don't have a driver.
Especially in cold times.
Out than people are imagining. It's going to take a little longer.
Martin, stay with us. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back. Martin Ford has a couple books out called Rule of the Robots. The other is called Rise of the Robots. He was with me back about 5 years ago when we talked about artificial intelligence. Let's see how much we've advanced since 5 years ago as well. We'll be back in a moment right here on Coast to Coast AM. And, of course, next hour we'll take your phone calls with him as well. And welcome back to Coast. George Norrie with you, Martin Ford with us. We're going to take calls with Martin next hour about artificial intelligence, so make sure you jump on board here. Back to our truck drivers, Martin, and talking about artificial intelligence. At some point, it's going to backfire, isn't it?
Well, it won't necessarily backfire, but there are things that we need to worry about. There's a lot of nefarious ways that artificial intelligence can be used, and is being used, in fact. If you look at what's happening in China, they're building kind of an Orwellian surveillance state. They're using artificial intelligence, facial recognition to keep track of their people, to control basically what they do, even what they buy, who they associate with, what they post on social media. All that stuff is.
How long kids can play video games? They're controlling that now.
Yeah, exactly. And AI is going to be, it's an incredibly powerful tool for an authoritarian regime like China, right? If you're a government that wants to control your population and always know what your population is doing, what your people are doing, AI is a dream come true, basically. It's very, very powerful when used for that purpose. So, and the thing is that China is deploying that domestically in their country, but they're also exporting it to other countries, right? There's especially other authoritarian countries, like in the Middle East and things like that. So it's kind of spreading around the world. And there is always going to be a trade-off, right? If you can legitimately use things like facial recognition, and you can reduce crime, right? You can stop crimes from happening. These systems have been used, for example, to catch pedophiles, people abusing children, stuff like that, which definitely is a good thing. But the other side of that is that it can really be a threat to privacy. So I think that each community, each city, each state, each country is going to have kind of a conversation about this and decide, how far do we want to go with this? What are we willing to accept in terms of giving up privacy in order to have more security, less criminals, less terrorists, things like that.
Hasn't Elon Musk said some pretty outrageous things about artificial intelligence?
He has. He said that artificial intelligence is summoning the demon, and I think at one sense he says it's more dangerous than North Korea, more dangerous than nuclear weapons. That's not true now. What he's thinking of is some future scenario where AI reaches, human level intelligence and goes beyond that. And we're very far from that now. We can build systems that seem to be very smart in very, very specific, narrow ways, that can do very, very specific things. But we haven't built any kind of artificial intelligence that has anything like general human intelligence. And yet people are definitely working on that. There are a couple of companies out there, DeepMind, which is owned by Google, and OpenAI is another one that are both focused specifically on doing that, someday building a machine that has human-level intelligence. Now, once you get to that point, people worry that you could lose control of it, right? That it will suddenly become much smarter than us, not just equal to us, but it'll be, maybe 1,000 times smarter than us. We'll be like a mouse, compared to this machine, right, in terms of our level of intelligence. And then once that happens, how do we keep control of it, And, what most of the people worry about is not so much like the Terminator movie where, you really have these malevolent machines that want to kill us, but rather it would just get beyond us and we might ask it to do something for us, but then it would act in ways that we didn't intend and maybe cause us real harm. Some people even think it could be an existential threat in the sense that it could wipe all of humanity out and things like that. I think that's kind of a legitimate concern, and there are some really smart people working on that. But I do think it's pretty far in the future, so I don't worry about it too much right now.
Are Asimov's robotic rules still in effect?
They're kind of irrelevant. I don't even remember exactly what they are, but the first one is a robot can't kill, right? And yet we're already on the verge of having autonomous weapons. We already, of course, have remote-controlled robots, drones that kill people, right? And you just saw a very tragic
tragedy in Afghanistan.
In Afghanistan with that, right? And that was a machine that was under human control. But we are very close to the point where those machines are going to be unleashed. In fact, there was another article you may have seen in the New York Times, I think it was yesterday or the day before, about the Israelis carried out an assassination in Iran of the very top nuclear scientist in Iran, the one that is in charge of their whole nuclear program, which they deny having. So the Israelis were able to assassinate this guy by hiding a robotic machine gun in a truck, basically, on the side of the road. And then they tracked the guy and shot the guy with the machine gun, but it was controlled, I think, from Israel, basically, from a long, long way away, but via satellite.
With cameras, I guess, right?
Right, exactly. But the thing is that because it had to go via satellite, there was a delay of about a second, I think, between what the person controlling it saw in the camera, right, and, being able to fire it, right? And there were wind conditions and all of that. So they actually used artificial intelligence to correct for that, to correct for the delay, to adjust the gun so that it could handle, the wind conditions, things like that. So that's, getting very close to just saying, we'll just let the gun do its thing by itself, right? And we are really on the verge of that. And you can imagine, for example, usually the way that this is imagined is in terms of drones, right? You could have small swarming drones, maybe hundreds of them, maybe even thousands of them, that would swarm and could attack people. And they don't have to have guns on or anything. They could just be little drones that had a little explosive charge, right? And the drone would just fly into you and kill you. There's actually a YouTube video you can watch. It's called Slaughterbots, and it was made by a guy named Stuart Russell, who's a professor of, an AI professor at UC Berkeley, and he's really worried about this. So he worked on with a team and made this very professional video called Slaughterbots, and you can watch it, and it's really scary. I mean, it shows you what could happen if we really unleashed autonomous weapons. And the thing, of course, is that they might initially be developed for militaries, right? But then what happens if those weapons fall into the hands of terrorists?
Or criminals.
Yeah, or criminals, or they could be used in all. We already have criminals. You've seen doing cyber hacking, holding companies hostage, all that kind of stuff. So you can imagine maybe that kind of thing happening with actual weapons as well. So it's quite a bunch of scary scenarios there.
I've got the first three laws of Azamak, and it came out of his book, I, Robot. The first law: a robot may not injure a human being or through inaction allow a human being to come to harm. Second, a robot must obey the orders given to it by human beings, except where such orders could conflict with the first law. Third, a robot must protect its own existence as long as such protection does not conflict with the first or second law. Well, already these robots have violated these laws because we see what these drones are doing.
Yeah, I mean, you can argue that those aren't real robots because
they're machines,
controlled, right?
Right.
But once they become autonomous, and I think that's kind of inevitable. I mean, so far, like the U.S. is saying we're not going to do that. We're going to always keep a person in the loop. But there is an initiative in the United Nations to ban these kinds of weapons, to make autonomous weapons illegal in the same way that chemical weapons are banned and biological weapons are banned. But actually, that's not making a lot of progress, and the reason is that the three countries that really matter, which are the United States and Russia and China, none of them will go along with a ban, right? They don't want to ban.
It's got to be all or none.
Right. The reason is they don't trust each other, right? I mean,
that's right. If you disarmed all your nukes, somebody's going to keep one,
right?
And that's why nobody will trust each other.
Exactly right. So it's these things are in development, right? What they're saying is, well, we'll develop this technology, in the lab, right, and show that it can work, but then we won't actually ever use it. I mean, hopefully that will be the case, but they won't not develop it because they don't trust other countries not to develop it. And it is the case that I mean, these kinds of weapons would be a tremendous advantage, right? I mean, on a battlefield, a machine can think 1,000 times faster than any human being, maybe 1,000,000 times faster, right? I mean, in a time it takes a person to reach for a button even and press the button, the
machine has already pushed the button.
Figured everything out and taken action, right? So there's no way that a human being's reaction could ever compete with a robot, right? If it was just let go to make decisions for itself. So, I mean, it would be a real advantage for whichever military developed these, and that's the reason that they're not going to, take this off the table.
Martin, would you say our smartphones are robots?
They're definitely technology, and they definitely are incorporating artificial intelligence. I mean, they're not robots in the sense of being autonomous themselves, but they are incorporating AI. I mean, like Siri, right? The personal assistants, or
I'm amazed by it. I mean, they remember your passwords, they remember your usernames, they remember all kinds of things on your phone. It's amazing. How do they do that?
Well, it's advances in artificial intelligence, that particular technology called deep learning, which is the latest trend in artificial intelligence. It's been about 10 years now that it's really been the primary way things are done, and it's been pretty revolutionary. And that's what powers Siri. That's what powers Amazon's, Alexa.
Alexa,
right?
Sure.
That's the technology behind that, and it's now also they're actually making special computer chips specifically for deep learning, for that technology, so they can run faster and faster. And those are used in Teslas, for example, for the self-driving car, feature, and they're also in at least the higher end smartphones, and they're used to power things like Siri, and that will only keep advancing, right? So, what we have right now in terms of Siri or Alexa is really pretty rudimentary. I mean, it's definitely not at the level of like the Star Trek computer, right, where you could really carry on a conversation and it will talk to you just like a person. But we are going to get closer and closer to that. So, this is going to be a relentless trend.
It is amazing that artificial intelligence at its best is very helpful to us.
Oh, yeah, it's going to be the most powerful tool that we have. I mean, it's the most important technology. And what I argue in my book, Rule of the Robots, is that artificial intelligence is eventually going to be almost like electricity. It's going to be everywhere. You think of what your life would be like if you didn't have electricity, right? I mean, just about everything you do throughout the day to some extent relies on electricity, right?
Or batteries or something.
Yeah. Some kind of electric power. I mean, you're plugged into time. So AI will be like that. It will be everywhere, and we will grow more and more dependent on it. So it's going to be a totally revolutionary technology that's really going to shape the future. And I, as I say, it's not a bad thing, but there are some scary things that come along with it, right? And we're going to need, laws and regulations to deal with these things. Like we really should do something about those autonomous weapons. If we can't ban them entirely, then we really need to take steps to make absolutely certain that they don't end up in the hands of terrorists.
Well, but who knows what's going to happen with that, right?
Yeah,
I mean, did we expect terrorists to command 3 planes?
Exactly, and that's the thing is that what happened with those planes on 9/11 is the terrorists did that with box cutters, right?
They got on with their box cutters and threatened people.
The thing is that AI is closer to a box cutter than to a nuclear weapon in terms of the complexity of it. I mean, people in a basement somewhere can use artificial intelligence. They could buy a drone on Amazon and then maybe retrofit that drone, turn it into a weapon, right? It's nothing like nuclear weapons. I mean, if you want to build a nuclear weapon, you need to be a country, right? Even most countries can't do that, right?
It's huge, difficult. It's difficult to hide.
Right. But these, technologies that involve weaponizing artificial intelligence and drones and things like that. I mean, literally, you could do it in a basement. Just one guy or a few people. So it's going to be much harder to control it.
Will AI, Martin, find cures for like COVID-19?
Well, it would definitely be a very powerful tool for medicine, and in fact, that's already happening. They're using AI to discover new drugs. I mean, basically, what you're doing is you're searching for molecules, right, that have a particular shape that can do particular things. And AI is really, really good at this. And there have already been, for example, antibiotics discovered that with artificial intelligence. And so it's going to be, very powerful for that kind of thing. It's going to definitely advance medicine. And it will also be used in other areas like diagnosis. There are AI systems that can look at medical scans, like X-rays or mammograms, things like that, look for cancer. And in some cases, they can do that better than doctors, right? And that's going to get better and better. So these technologies are going to be a boon to medicine, absolutely.